Hello everyone, welcome back to Wire Gaming. I'm Mike, and for those of you who've been following my channel, you know that my most popular content is actually my shorts content, where I revolve around talking about Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Now with Baldur's Gate 3 out, I'm excited to go and get started in recordings on that. So excited actually that I got my group together. We went and had a special day. We went and did like a 6-hour recording, and we had a lot of fun. I didn't hit the button to record the game audio. All that video is just not useful, and it won't be interesting to watch. So what I do want to do though, to give you guys some value, is I'm gonna go recreate my process and talk out loud my thinking for my first character I made for Dungeons & Dragons for this group I'm playing with. Come along with me. Hopefully I can give you some ideas, help you kind of make sense of all the decisions you need to make in the game. Give a like in the video, and if I get enough likes, I'll go and make 3 more videos to go and kind of do the same process, one for each classical archetype of a member of a D&D group. You can go and see different ways you can make a character for different roles. With that said though, how about you just jump in with me and let's have some fun. All right. So when I went and played with my friends, we have 4 players in our group. I went around and asked them what they wanted to do, what type of character they wanted to play. One's going to be a barbarian. The other one was going to be a paladin. They want to go in the front end. They want to go and bash things up. Our third player decided to go and be a cleric. So he's going to go and be a healer for the rest of the group. That leaves me to do pretty much whatever I want. Over here we have origin or custom. That means an origin character or characters who have well-established backgrounds. Or you can go up here and do a custom. You can do randomize, generate a character with random races, classes, background, appearance. So that's a random origin. We have races on this left over here. And then we have the class, then we have the background, the ability, point spread. On the right side is all your attributes. You have strength, how strong a character is, dex, how nimble and fast they are, constitution, how bodily healthy they are, intelligence, how much a person knows, wisdom is what they do with that information. A common trope is a high intelligence wizard would know a spell that could destroy a whole city. A wise wizard is one that knows not to be in the city when they cast that spell. And then charisma is your presence, your ability to go and maneuver through social encounters. I prefer to go through and do the class first. The class is like your profession that your adventurer does. Like, how does your adventurer do the adventuring? That's what classes are. They all have different approaches to go and do their adventuring. The history for Dungeons & Dragons is that it actually spawns off from wargaming, and wargaming is very tactical, combat oriented. So you're gonna see a lot of combat in the game. It's not all of Dungeons & Dragons. There's what's called the 3 pillars of Dungeons & Dragons. One of them is combat, another one's exploration, and the third one is social interactions. Combat in a lot of games tends to do a lot of the heavy lifting, but I think in Baldur's Gate here, they do them pretty evenly. I want to go and do a support character, and with the support, I want to go and remove issues that my party may come across in combat, and I think I'm going to go and try using magic to do that. And then outside of combat, I want to go and remove issues and hurdles by using my skills. So like more mundane means to do that, because you can only cast so many spells during a day. Good one for that is it could be either a bard. A bard uses the music and kind of strings magic through the music itself. They're very charismatic characters, and they get the second most number of skill proficiencies at the beginning of the game, second only to the rogue. Rogues are another one you could use just because of how many skill proficiencies you get. A skill proficiency is there's a set of skills in this game. Let me go and pull them up for you. Abilities, it's under the ability screen. All right, so here are all the skills that you can have as a character. And what skills are is whenever you do something in combat or outside of combat, that's a unique action that you want to do. The idea is one of these skills may help you with doing that action. If you want to go and try to remember what happens in the lands around here, or what these ruins are back here, what it could have been at one point in time, you will use your history skill. Each skill has an attribute linked to it. Like for history, the attribute underneath it is intelligence. That's how smart you are, like you mentioned before. And if you look over to the right, intelligence for this character is an 8. Anything below 10, you're gonna start getting negative modifiers. Anything at like 12 or higher, you start getting positive modifiers. 10 or 11, you're at 0. For doing this skill check, we're gonna go and it's looking at the character's intelligence, which is an 8, so your -1 modifier. And it also sees if you're proficient in this skill. If you're proficient in this skill, you add a number that's known as your proficiency bonus. As a character increases in levels, it doesn't matter what class you increase it in. You can do multiple classes. The sum number of those levels and classes is your character level. And at certain points in your character level, that proficiency bonus number gets a little bit bigger. So if you're proficient in something, as you become a higher level adventurer, you become even better at those skills that you're proficient in. So up here in athletics, we can see we got a +5 here, which is really good. So the attribute that linked to athletics is strength. If you look at the character, their strength right now is 17. The star on top of it is because that attribute is really important for the class that they're using, which is currently listed as Barbarian. So at 17, I believe the modifier is a +3. So you're getting +3 for that. And you're getting at level 1, your proficiency bonus is a +2. So you have +3 for your attribute, +2 because you're proficient in it. So you roll a 20-sided die and add this number to it, and that is the result for any challenge you use for athletics. If I remove the proficiency bonus right here, you see it knocks down to 3 because that's the modifier for the strength of 17. Now I want to make a character that will be proficient in as many of these as possible, so that irregardless if their attribute is good in it or not, they're gonna have a good bonus to doing any one of these checks, because I don't know what's gonna happen in this game. So I want to make a character that is prepared for pretty much anything outside of combat, and we're gonna lean a lot on skills to do that. That being said, we'll confirm this for now. We're gonna go back to race and sub-race and all this first, but first I want to go and tackle class. Now I decided on Bard because they're a really good support class to have. Their primary attribute is charisma. You'll see over here there's charisma with a star on it, 17, because you're a performer. Your magic comes through your performance and through your instruments, and so charisma makes sense to be the spell casting modifier for your character. The spell casting modifier is the attribute you use to go and cast your spells. The higher value the attribute is that you use to cast your spells in, the more powerful those spells are, the harder it is to resist the effects of those spells. So it's good to know that. And the game does give a little star that suggests which attribute you want to use with whichever class you pick. Now, the Bard, you know, music is more than fancy. It is power. Through study and adventure, you have mastered song, speech, and the magic within. And so in here, for the details, you get proficiencies. Not only do we have skill proficiencies, we also have tool proficiencies and weapon and armor proficiencies. So if you're proficient in a tool, you can use that to be better at the tool. If you're proficient in, let's say here, light armor, that means my character can wear light armor without any negative effects. We can use simple weapons. Simple weapons are gonna be like clubs and slings. There's a whole subclass of that. We can do hand crossbows, which is a single-handed crossbow you can shoot and then reload and shoot again. With hand crossbows, you can actually have 2 of them, 1 in each hand, and on your attack round, you can attack with your primary hand, and as a bonus action, attack with your secondary hand. So you can just be like this ridiculous gunslinger with hand crossbows, which is something I did for a little bit of the game. Long swords, they're swords, they are long. Rapiers, these are like fencing swords that have a foil on them, and I can go and add my dexterity instead of strength to rapiers, which is good because my strength right now isn't that high. And then short swords, again, are shorter than long swords. They don't do as much damage. And when I use any of these weapons, I can go and add my proficiency bonus to the attack rolls with those weapons. That means the chance for me to actually make purchase using these weapons, I roll the d20, I add my modifier for, mostly it's going to be strength for melee weapons, and then I can add my proficiency bonus to that as well to see if I actually make contact with my enemy. So I want to make sure that when I use weapons, I want to be one of these weapons. We do have some spell casting we can do. So we have some cantrips, we have first level spells. Bard has a unique pool of spells I can choose from, both from the arcane and divine spell casting pools. Arcane is kind of spells you'd get from wizards and sorcerers. They're kind of like spells that are very mechanical. They're very upfront about what they do. And then there's also divine spells, or spells that are given to you by some type of divine entity. Your connection with nature, your connection with a purpose if you're a paladin. And bards kind of have a mix of both of them. They have a subset that pulls from both kind of pools of magic. We also get a special action. This is very good. It's called Bardic Inspiration. It inspires an ally to add a 1d6 bonus to their next attack roll, ability check, or saving throw. Now, this term 1d6, it just tells you what type of die it is. So 1 means how many of the dice you're going to use. D is denoting that it's a dice type. So right now it's 1 die, and that die has to be 6-sided. 6-sided die is just your generic cube die you would find like a game of Monopoly or playing a board game. You may see things say like D10, that's a 10-sided die, D12, that's a 12-sided die. That's probably the highest one you're gonna get for damage dealing. D6 and D8 are pretty common ones to use for weapons. And so for me to go and be able to just hand out, hey, here, my ally, as a bonus action, my ally, I'm gonna allow you, next time you make an attack or ability check or saving throw, make your roll, add your modifiers, and on top of that, roll an additional 6-sided die and add that value to that check as well. So this kind of gives a boost to my allies. That's support. That's all we want to do. We want to make our allies better at what they do. And then you also have a class feature at level 1, which is level 1 spell slots are unlocked. You gain 2 level 1 spell slots, which are restored on a long rest. Spell slots are, if you think of spell casting like a gun, spell slots are your bullets. That's pretty much it. Every day I have 2 spell slots, so I have 2 bullets that are level 1, so I can cast 2 level 1 spells before I have to do a long rest. That's it. That's all that spell slots are. Let's go and take a look at the cantrips. I have to go down the list here. Cantrips. Here we go. So we're gonna go and click this, click that. What are these? Spellcasting ability is charisma. The higher the charisma, the more powerful my spells are gonna be. My spell save DC is 13. Once again, the higher the value, the more difficult this spell save is going to be. DC is pretty much the number that your opponents will have to roll for a save to resist the effects of the spell. So the higher this number is, the harder it is for your targets to resist that magic. Your allies, if you cast a spell on your allies, they can just choose not to resist it, and they just get the benefits or the ailments of that magic if they want to. So spell attack is 5 because my charisma is a +3, and I'm proficient with casting these spells, which is a +2 right now, so it's a +5. We have a lot of cantrips available. I can only use 2 of them, and a cantrip is a spell you can cast that doesn't need bullets. It doesn't need a spell slot. They're very low level spells. They don't do too much. As your character gets higher in level, they should get more powerful. It shouldn't be how many levels you have in the class. It should be how many levels your character is. But for right now, it doesn't seem to be mentioning any of that. What we do have here is Vicious Mockery. The effect of this is you insult a creature. It has disadvantage on its next attack roll. Disadvantage means you, instead of rolling 1d20 and doing modifiers to see if you hit a target, they're going to roll 2d20, take the lowest value, and then do the modifiers on that. So this actually makes it more likely that the target's going to miss. And since we're supporting other characters and our friends, we want to make sure our enemies are going to miss. Doesn't do a lot of damage, but that's not the focus of this character. We're support. And so I think Vicious Mockery is an excellent one to have. We can cast this every round because it costs no bullets, no magic bullets, no spell slots. So I definitely want to have that lined up. We have Blade Ward. Take only half damage from bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing attacks. Especially at the beginning of the game, you're going to see a lot of attacks like this. It lasts 2 turns, but I think I can only cast it on myself. Let's see, hit T here. 2 turns, there's no range on it, so I think it only targets myself. Unlike here, with Vicious Mockery, it says in the bottom 18 meters, so that means I can cast it 18 meters away, and the enemy will have to make a Wiz save, which sounds funny, yes, but Wiz is wisdom, and so they have to go and roll using a d20, add their wisdom modifier to it, and if they're proficient in a wisdom save, they add a proficiency bonus. If that value is equal or higher than my DC save, which is going to be 13, then they pass. If it's lower than 13, then they fail, they take damage, and they have disadvantage on next attack. Blade Ward doesn't have a range, so I think it only affects me as a caster, and if I'm doing it on myself, I'm not helping the rest of my team, so that's very good support. Mage Hand's a very good one because you can have essentially another entity on the battlefield to go and do basic things. I don't know what they allow you to do in this game. I think I've seen them use push. I've seen them throw items. So if you want to go and drop a few potions before battle begins and leave Mage Hand there, begin battle, Mage Hand will go and start throwing potions into, like grenades, into the battlefield, either to harm people or to heal your allies. True Strike, gain advantage on your next attack roll. And this is actually 18 meters, so I can go and cast this on other people, and it takes concentration. So what does that mean? Advantage, like disadvantage, when you go and make an attack, instead of rolling 1 20-sided die, 1d20, you're going to roll 2 20-sided die. You're going to roll 2 d20, and you're going to take the higher of the 2 dice. That's the value you're going to be using to go and put all the other modifiers on. So this is going to make it more likely that you're going to go and hit your target. We can go and target someone that's 18 meters away. This lasts 2 turns, but this whole 2-turn thing is different than in the tabletop game. In the tabletop game, it's just for one action, which made this spell True Strike and this spell Blade Ward not very useful. Making it 2 turns is much more useful, and it takes concentration. What concentration is effectively on your character sheet, you have a single checkbox that's marked as concentration. And what that means is when you cast a spell of concentration, that spell will persist as long as you keep concentration on it. So you cast a spell, you kind of check off that little box, the mental checkbox for concentration. If you take damage or something happens that might distract your character, you're gonna have to make a concentration roll, just a d20 roll plus your con modifier, to see if you keep your focus on that spell. If you lose focus on the spell, then the spell effects dissipate and they're no longer in effect. You can also at will stop concentration on a spell, and then the spell effects for that spell will also disappear. Or you can cast another spell later on that also takes concentration. When that happens, that one checkbox you have for concentration will now be attributed to the new spell, not the old one. The old spell will disappear, the new one will be present within the world and persistent as long as it's within its duration and you have concentration on it. Friends. This one is, again, you gain advantage on charisma checks against non-hostile creatures, which means if you're going to go and talk to someone and you want to do some socialization, like you want to go and try to intimidate, deceive, or persuade someone, if you have this spell effect on you, you roll 2d20, take the highest value, and use that. In higher difficulty modes, in higher difficulty modes, the target might accuse you of enchanting them. So that's interesting. In the tabletop game, if you cast Friends on someone, you can go interact with an NPC, you get better chance of succeeding your rolls, but after the spell effect is over, the target knows they were enchanted and they become hostile to you. But in this game, that hostile effect doesn't seem to happen as much. So according to this little warning here, it may happen, but it may be later on in the game. So this may be one I would consider picking up if I was making the character now that I know that not everyone becomes instantly hostile to you when you cast a spell on them, and since you want to go and help with social situations, Friends would be a great one to have. We also have Dancing Lights. It lasts 10 turns. You can cast it 18 meters out. It takes concentration, and pretty much you create a little orb or several orbs of light to illuminate a room, and you can move that orb or light around on its own, and it doesn't have to be attached to your character like a torch would be. Light, very similar. This one does not take concentration. You affect a piece of equipment. You only affect one target at a time, which is interesting for light. Point to an item or an object, they start producing light like it's a torch, and then you have a torch with you. So for those of you who have a hard time with races that have a hard time seeing in the dark, either light or dancing lights would be great. If not, a torch will work just as well. The last one is Minor Illusion. Minor Illusion in this game is pretty much used to go and distract creatures and force them to investigate. So if you need to get past some guards or whatever, you can go cast Minor Illusions to go and get past them. So, and move on from there. We also have spells. We will have what's called prepared for spells. Remember, we only have 2 spell slots, 2 magic bullets to use per long rest. So we have to be careful of which ones we pick because we're not gonna be able to cast all of them in a single day. But we can cast the same spell multiple times if we want to. We got here Animal Friendship. It pretty much makes it so that animals will go and they won't be hostile to you, which is good to have. Bane, you can go and target up to 3 creatures and they get a 1d4 penalty to attack rolls and saving throws if they fail their charisma save. This takes up that concentration slot. It goes for 9 meters. It lasts 10 turns. I don't tend to do this because it gives your opponents the option to go and save against this, and at which point it takes no effect. There is one called Bless, which is kind of the opposite, where it just makes it so your allies are more likely to make hits and succeed in their saving throws. And I prefer that one instead because your allies are not going to resist that magical effect. So you're not going to feel like you're losing out. Unlike Bane, where if you cast it, there's a chance that all the enemies will go resist the effect and you don't get the benefit of casting the spell. We have Charm Person. Again, this is one where you can charm a humanoid to prevent it from attacking you. You get advantage on charisma checks and dialogue. All really powerful, similar to Friends, but a little bit better. Condition ends early if you or an ally hurts the target. So if you cast this, let your friends know, hey, don't hurt them. In higher difficulty modes, the target might accuse you of enchanting them. Similar to the Friends cantrip, I did not pick Charm Person because in my experience in tabletop games, the spell wears off, that person's hostile to you, and they will probably attack you. But in this game, it might be worth it. Cure Wounds, pretty much you go and you touch your target and they are healed for 1d8 plus 3. So they get 8-sided die, they roll that, they get a value, they add 3 to it, and then that's how much healing you get. And then the shorthand is it'll be 4 to 11. I picked Disguise Self because if I go, I don't know what I'm gonna get myself into, and it may behoove me to be able to appear as a different person to either gain access to different areas of the game, maybe NPCs who I talk to, non-player characters. They may prefer to talk to someone who is of their own race rather than a race of someone else. If I want to do shenanigans, I think I'm gonna get caught. Maybe I want to look like someone else before doing it. So if I get caught, I can run away, drop the magic. Hopefully the NPCs won't recognize me. This is just a good one for me to go and cause trouble, but not risk the party. We're going to cause trouble. So definitely we need that. What this doesn't tell you, and I don't know why, is that Disguise Self is considered a ritual spell. And what ritual spells do is if you're not in combat, you can cast a ritual spell without using a spell slot, without using a magic bullet. So when I was playing the game, as I was walking around town or approaching a town, I could cast Disguise Self on my character, make my appearance look like something else, and then walk through the town. And the spell effect lasted until a long rest, which isn't in line with the tabletop game, but I think it's a good move for the video game. And I don't see a reason for me to cast Disguise Self in the middle of combat, so I think I'm pretty safe there. I can cast this spell without using a spell slot. Dissident Whispers, I can pretty much attempt to frighten a creature, and they will be frightened for 2 turns. If they save, they don't become frightened, but they take half damage. Fairy Fire, this is another good one I like using. All targets within the light turn visible, and attack rolls against them have advantage. If you go and approach a group of baddies on turn 1, especially if you start your turn early, cast Fairy Fire. Everyone who fails their dex save for the next 10 turns, as long as they keep concentration, they will glow. Everyone in my party who attacks them will attack with advantage. Downside, though, is if you're not the first person to go on a turn and enemies aren't clumped up together, chances are your team and the enemy team are going to be mingled together, and then casting Fairy Fire is going to risk affecting my allies also, and then enemies will have advantage on attacking the allies. Next is going to be Featherfall. This one's pretty easy. You use a reaction or a bonus action. If you fall a long distance where you're going to take damage, cast Fairy Fire on yourself and nearby allies, and you just don't take falling damage. A lot of situations where you may have to jump off tall buildings, it'd be good to have this in your pocket just so you don't die on the landing. Healing Ward, the second healing ability we have at level 1 is a Bard. It's a 1d4, so it's a 4-sided die, and then +3, because my charisma modifier is a +3, so you get 4 to 7 healing. Not as much as the Cure Wounds, which gives 4 to 11 healing, but I prefer this one because, one, it's a bonus action, which bonus actions are like minor flourishes you can do on your turn, and it can be paired with your action, which is a more powerful thing you can do. As a bonus action, it also has a range of 18 meters. Cure Wounds, you have to be melee. You have to be adjacent to your target to use it. This one, I can use at a distance. If a hero goes and they take enough damage that their health goes to 0 or negative, if your maximum health is 10, you get hit really hard. After you do the math, your health is now at -10 or lower. That means you're instantly dead. Outside of that situation, if a hero gets brought to 0 hit points or lower, they become unconscious and they go into the dying state, at which point they start doing death saves. Death saves are just a quick d20 roll. 10 or higher, you pass. 9 to 1, you fail. A 1 is a critical failure, and a 20 is a critical success. So when you pass, you get 1 pass. You need 3 passes to become stabilized. That means you stop dying. If you fail, you get 1 check mark and the failing track. So the 2 separate tracks. They're not fighting against each other. They're kind of moving along at the same pace. And if you get 3 death save failures, you are permanently dead. That's it. Game over. If you critically succeed, that means you roll a 20 on that 20-sided die. So not only did you stabilize, you get 1 health point back, which means your character can start taking actions again. They're not just lying on the ground doing nothing. If you get a critical failure, if you roll a 1, then it's considered as 2 failed death saving throws, which means you're much closer to being permanently dead. So that's kind of how that whole process works. If you get any form of healing while in the dying state, you stabilize, and if it's above, and if the healing is 1 or higher, you are kind of effectively back in the fight, which is what Healing Ward is really powerful for. I foresee myself using this in situations where we're in combat, an ally goes down, and they're in a bad spot. I'm going to be 18 meters away, I can cast Healing Ward on them, heal them for a little bit, sure, but they circumvent that whole dying process and doing the rolls, and they're kind of back in the fight. While we're not a pure healer, we do want to keep our allies in the fight as long as we can. So we're going to go and take Healing Word. Heroism, this is a good one to go and keep your allies in the fight. It only attacks 1 person, lasts 10 rounds, takes your concentration slot up. You have to be right next to them to cast it. The target is immune to frightened, which is great if you're going against larger creatures or any spells that cause frightened. And also they get 5 temporary hit points. Again, let's say your character has 10 health points. This spell is cast on top of them. They're immune to frightened, which is great. They have 5 temporary hit points. If they take 5 damage, that damage is removed from the temporary hit points first. In this situation, the temporary hit points will go away. You will still have your 10 health points available. Temporary hit points cannot be healed. You cannot cast multiple sources of temporary hit points and add them all together. You only grab 1 source of temporary hit points at a time. Generally, you want the one that gives you the biggest pool of temporary hit points. But with Heroism, those 5 temporary hit points, will be given to your target each of its turns. So they're constantly getting 5 hit points. If they're in the middle of combat and they take a hit, they need to get hit with 6 damage at least first before they actually start taking actual damage to their health. So heroism really helps a single frontline fighter keep fighting, or someone who may be in dire straits and it's gonna be some time before you can help them. This may help them with their survivability. This is a pretty solid one to have, especially in lower levels. But again, I want to go and focus also on being able to be useful outside of combat, so I didn't pick this one up right away. Long Strider, simply, it's you just touch a target and their movement speed increases by 3 meters until a long rest. So your whole adventuring day, you're just increased by 3 meters. And the more movement you have, the more ability you have to get out or get into tactical positions, which is all about that combat situation. So that's good. Sleep. Sleep is a nice one to have also early on in the game to neutralize a lot of smaller enemies. And what it does is you go and cast this on an area. A magical sleep smoke comes into the area and starts affecting the creatures inside. Well, in here it says a combined up to 24 hit points, or how much health that creature has. If the first creature has, let's say it's 4 health points, well then the game will go and say, okay, that creature have 4 health points, they are now asleep. They're on the ground, incapacitated, and the pool of hit points you can affect through this spell is now been reduced by 4. So now you have 20 hit points left. If the next creature then has 10 hit points, the game will go calculate it out and say, okay, this next creature with next lowest amount of hit points is 10. That is less than the pool of hit points we have here for this spell. So that creature is also going to be unconscious on the ground, asleep. And we're going to subtract 10 from that remaining 20. You have 10 left. And it'll keep going until the pool of hit points that comes from the spell is consumed, and then all the other creatures are not affected by it. But you can go and effectively have multiple creatures fall asleep for 2 turns. So that's 2 turns of combat where 1 or more creatures aren't fighting. It's pretty good to have. The downside is there are creatures such as elves that are immune to sleep effects. So I chose not to pick this one either because I wanted to get this one. Speaking with animals, I played Lorien games before with Divinity Original Sin, and I do know that they like giving their animals interesting things to say, interesting quests to have, and interesting tidbits about the world. So I wanted to pick up Speak with Animals. Again, this is another spell that is it's not marked here, but it's a ritual spell. It lasts until your long rest, so your whole adventuring day, cast it once. It doesn't cost any of my magic bullets because it's a ritual spell. The reason for Tasha's Hideous Laughter is that this will go and take 1 creature out of the fight for roughly 10 turns. The creature must have an intelligence of 5 or more. So someone who knows kind of what language is, so pretty much any combatant we're going to come across, unless it's like an ooze or something, will be within the criteria of that. The target can try to shake off the effects each time it takes damage. Not every round, each time it takes damage. So if you cast this spell on someone, a creature, they fail their wisdom saving throw. I keep concentration on it. They're on the ground and they're forced to just be in a laughing fit. If they take damage, they can go and do another check to see if they can pass the wisdom saving throw. But if not, if I cast this in the middle of combat, and I did this a few times with some of the stronger creatures, they're gonna hit the ground laughing. We have 10 rounds, as long as I don't lose concentration and it doesn't take damage. After we go and clean up all the smaller creatures, we can go reorganize ourselves and be better prepared to take out that bigger threat. And that's why I chose Tasha's instead of doing Sleep, because if you can take the big bad out even temporarily, it makes the fight a lot better. And that was a pretty good spread from here. A couple of notable mentions though would be Featherfall and also Fairy Fire. I just didn't make the cut with only the 4 prepared slots I had. Starting instrument, I think I picked a hand drum just because it's the only one I could think would make sense while going into a cave or something. Pulling out a violin to start playing something in the middle of combat didn't make sense to me, so I started off a hand drum, and I quickly was able to go and get a couple other instruments while exploring the game. Now I'm gonna go back, look at a race to see what races would be that work well with my class. In this game, Baldur's Gate 3, it looks like they went to Tasha's Cauldron of Everything method for attribute spread. Normally in games of Dungeons & Dragons beforehand, one of the unique things for each race is that each one will give you different bonuses to your attributes. You know, a elf may give you a bonus to your intelligence and wisdom attributes by a +1 or +2. A dragonborn will give you a +2 to your charisma because it's a unique creature, and so they have a certain presence within the world. In this game, what they did instead, they went ahead and boiled it down to everyone gets a +2 in one attribute they want, and they also get a +1 to a second attribute they want, which is in line with Tasha's Cauldron of Everything when they have their custom background and lineage. So we don't have to worry about that for races. So next thing that's most important to me then is I want access to the most skill proficiencies possible. The reason I would have picked Wood Elf subclass is because all elves would get keen senses. And all that means is that elf gets a proficiency bonus in the perception skill. Perception is just your awareness around you. And also the sub race Wood Elf would also give you a proficiency bonus in certain situations with hiding. And I think they just made it in the game hiding in general. But when I went and looked at the races here, this is a new UI for it. It doesn't describe to you any bonus skill proficiencies that you get. According to this, Elf would go and get 9 meters movement per turn, which is the same thing as humans. That's a basic movement speed. You have weapons training, which means you have additional proficiencies in a few different other weapons. You have dark vision, which means if you have no light source, you can still see around you up to 12 meters. And then you have Fey Ancestry, which means you have advantage on saving throws against being charmed, and magic can't put you to sleep. Like I mentioned before, elves can be put to sleep with the sleep spell. Just looking at this, I didn't see anything that mentioned anything about skill proficiencies. So I went ahead and made a different choice. But before I get into that, if you want to know if a race here gives you a skill proficiency, you're going to have to go down to abilities, go down to skill proficiencies. And this one here that kind of has a question mark that looks kind of like a head, these are coming from your race. Even though it doesn't show up in the race view, you can see them here in the skills. And you can see here with the Wood Elf, you do get proficiency with stealth. You do get proficiency with perception, which is what I thought. I would have picked Wood Elf, but when going through the race panel, I didn't know. So the only races that had anything to describe skill proficiencies was Githyanki. They have an action that they do every single day, and you'll get proficiency in all the skills of a chosen ability. Like I mentioned before, all abilities are kind of tied to a specific attribute. I activate this every morning. I get a list of all 8 attributes: Strength, Dex, Con, Int, Wiz, Charisma. I pick one of them. Let's say I pick Charisma, and then all the skills are linked to Charisma. So the Persuasion, Deception, Intimidation, I just get proficiency with it for the rest of the day, which is a huge boon if you want to go and be what's called the skill monkey. You have proficiency in everything. But the only downside is that Githyanki in this world, in the story, don't belong here. This character would have a lot of trouble kind of getting along with everyone else around you. And while, yes, I was going to go and pick up the Disguise Self spell, I just thought it would be too much trouble to use a Githyanki right off the bat. So the only other race in this panel that mentions anything about skill proficiencies was human. They get human versatility, so I get to select an additional skill to be proficient in, and then my carrying capacity is increased by a quarter. The big thing was I wanted the skill proficiency, so I ended up picking human, and that just gave me 1 skill proficiency, but I got to choose what it was. I kind of took a hit on that, but that's okay. Movement's 9, civil militia, which means I have additional proficiencies with a bunch of pole arms, it looks like. Armor, proficiency of light armor, which my bard will already have. But I also get proficiency with shields, and shields, if it's a basic shield, will add 2 to your armor class, your AC. I didn't mind this because having a bard that can go wear a shield, it makes it a little bit harder for them to get hit. Good. I went back, I went and did the human race. Before I did anything else, I went back to Origins. I decided to go and pick Dark Urge, mainly 1, because it's a one that doesn't have a pre-made character that goes with it. And 2, oh man, do it all over again. And 2, it's pretty much, you just have these urges to go and harm and hurt people, and you don't know why. And I have not played a character like this before, and I thought it was interesting. So yes, let's do the Dark Urge. Let's see what happens and go from there. When the race is human, when you last bard, this, we're gonna go again, quick, and spells. These, we're gonna get you. All right, drum please. Background is the haunted one. Normally backgrounds would be something that tells you like, here's how you grew up. It's kind of a quick blurb of what you were doing before you became a professional adventurer, and each one would give you 2 proficiency bonuses. So this one I get proficiency bonus in medicine and intimidation. Excellent. We're almost there, guys. So we're going around the bend here. Ability points. I like to go and just bring everything down to 0, or bring down to lowest amount. And this system here, the traditional option is you roll dice to go and figure out what these values are. In this game, we're doing point buy, which means you have a pool of ability points that you can add or subtract from each attribute. At the lowest is 8, and every time you increase it, so the higher number this is, the more points it takes to buy it. So at 12 to 13, it costs 1, but from 22 to 14, it costs 2 now. And then it's gonna be 2 until it maxes out at 15. So you can pick each one of these somewhere's range between 8 and 15. I decided that my character is gonna be a little bit weaker. So that means we're gonna get a +1 for dexterity. We're gonna get a +1 constitution, +1 to intelligence, +1 to wisdom. I really wanna make sure, because my weapons are gonna be ranged weapons, and ranged weapons normally have dexterity modifiers, what they use to see if you hit and what damage you do. So dexterity is my second most important attribute right here. If later on I can boost intelligence up by 1 more point, this will become a +2 modifier, but right now it's going to stay as +1. Then 15, again, if I can boost this up by 1, I can make this a +3 modifier instead of a +2. But this is kind of the spread I'm using right now. Not so great in strength. Dexterity, pretty decent at. I should be able to hit a decent amount of my hits. Constitution, not great, not bad. Intelligence, I get a +1 in those checks, which is good. Wisdom, +1 in the checks. Charisma, +3 in the checks. For doing all the skills that we want to do outside, we're getting at least a positive in most of the skill checks, except for athletics, which is going to be a -1 because of strength. I'm okay with that. Let's go on to our skill proficiencies. First off, we get 1 skill proficiency for being a human, and we can put that anywhere. Looks like medicine and intimidation aren't available because we're getting these from our backgrounds, which is fine. I want to be able to persuade, so I'm going to go and put that there for that. So every time I try to persuade someone in conversations, it's a +5, and that is a nice number to have, +5. 3 is good, 5 is better. Intimidation also 5. That's awesome. That's going to be for the human side. Then we got 3 more to do. Performance, we got an instrument, we're going to perform. Perception, I don't want to be caught off guard. Perception is kind of your awareness of your surroundings. And then 1 more we can use. I think I'm going to do that in stealth. If I go and sneak around a bit, I don't want to get caught, especially since I'm a fairly squishy character. So I think being able to slide around or slink around is going to be a good way to do that. Let's confirm that. There's all my skill proficiencies. All right, mechanically speaking, this is our character. Looks pretty good. I'm pretty excited to use it. We just need to go ahead and edit our appearance. Dandy male, yes please. Voice, that's good. I'll go get this guy here like that. Skin color, there we go, that guy there. We want this guy to be charismatic, so we're not going to have any scars. Maturity, we want to be young. Freckles, let's give him a whole bunch. Intensity, just a little bit. Genitals, please have some. Body art, probably not gonna do any. Eyes, let's go and give him 2 different color eyes. Brown 2 and brown 4. He is a performer. We could put makeup on him. We're gonna go without it. Hair. This is the only thing that we should do. If you're gonna be a bard, this is probably the only hairstyle you should have. That's what I think anyways. This is pretty much like a glamour rock going on here. I'm excited for it. Facial hair, again, I'm probably going to skip all this. Our name is going to be, if we're going to be a homicidal maniac who is going to be beautiful and going to be mingle around in the crowds unnoticed, I think the only name for this character is going to be Dexter. It says I need a guardian. Well, I can only think of 1 person Dexter would trust enough to go and protect him in time of need. A human, do 2 for voice. Body type is gonna tone. Freckles, yeah, why not? He's gonna be a little older. Eyes, hair, and I give you Dexter's guardian. Who else but Dexter can protect him in times of need? Only time will make him wiser and stronger. I don't know what this guardian thing does, but I think an egomaniac would definitely want himself to be his protector. I have no idea what this is going to do in the game. I think it's going to be interesting though. And after that, we are going to go and venture forth. So that's it. That's how I went and made my character. It's a support class, so it's not meant to do much damage. It's not meant to do much healing, but it is there to go and kind of brush away any barriers that our team's going to come across. If you like this video, once again, give it a like down in the description, and I will go, if I get enough likes, I'll go and make one for the classic archetypes that you usually find in Dungeons & Dragons. Usually we have someone who's the front line, someone who's like a glass cannon or a damage dealer, someone who's a healer, and usually you have someone who's going to be like the rogue, pretty much. If you go play this game, I hope this gave you some insights on one way you can go choose your character. It's not a min-max character. It doesn't mean it's the perfect way to go, but it's just a way to approach it. If you do play this game, I hope you have much fun with it as we are, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Take care. This is so ridiculous. Oh no. Oh, I wish I recorded this. Oh, it's so good. Oh, it's so good.